Okay, good morning. I'm Deputy Chief Mark Simmons. I appreciate you being here this morning. I would like to start off with first giving my deepest and most heartfelt condolences to the families of the victims of our tragic homicide last night. And I use that word tragic purposely. This was a tragic incident that was needless and did not have to happen. And now these families are left in pain, where you have a family member that is no longer coming home, a brother, a father, a loved one. And I am in pain. I'm hurting from it. Last night was a very difficult night. As you're aware, we had 5 shooting victims in a matter of a 4-hour span. It's unacceptable, and it will not be tolerated in our city. In recent years, the city of Rochester has experienced historic lows in crimes, especially as it relates to violent crimes with our robberies, our aggravated assaults, our homicides. But that's not enough. And I want to stand here to promise this community that the RPD will do our part in making sure that this community is even safer than it is today. To that point, I would like to address the community directly. This morning, the RPD command staff have been meeting and developing strategic plans to address this rash of violence that we've seen over the night. And while I won't get into every detail of those plans and the specifics, I will say that the community members should expect to see increased vehicular patrols, foot patrols, the use of our tactical unit, addressing some of these open air drug cells, the use of our narcotics unit, addressing some of these chronic locations that we know where drugs and violent activity and criminal activity is taking place. In short, RPD will do our part in maintaining the peace and the order of this community. But we can't do it alone. We need the help of the community. If you witness or observe crime, it's important that you pick up the phone and call 911. Let us know what you've seen, so that way we can respond swiftly and appropriately to address those crimes. Lastly, I would like to send an even stronger message to those individuals who choose to go out and commit violent crimes in the city of Rochester. RPD will be coming for you. RPD will be coming for you. This will not stand. Families should not have to live in fear and duck when they hear gunfires and shots on their street. It's unacceptable and will not be tolerated. RPD will use every resource in our disposal to make sure that we arrest, prevent, investigate, and remove those criminals from the streets who choose to terrorize their own neighborhoods. RPD is here to protect and make this community a safe place, and we will not rest until we see that justice is served. To that point, last night we apprehended 2 individuals responsible for the Lau Avenue homicide last weekend. Our investigators worked tirelessly to investigate these crimes, and we will continue to do so to make sure that we keep the streets in the city of Rochester safe. And with that, I'll open it up for questions.
Deputy Chief Simmons, in a lot of these cases, the victims are being transported to the hospital in private vehicles. What challenges does that present, not just to the investigation, but the resources, having to then go to the hospital and the scene, and not to mention the safety concern for the victims themselves?
So first and foremost, we care about the health and well-being of the victim. So if a passerby doing the right thing wants to get the victim to the hospital to receive the most urgent care possible, yes, it does create obstacles for our investigation, but that's secondary to making sure that that victim is safe and okay. This is something that we've experienced for years. Our investigators are well equipped to still piece together and maintain both scenes at the hospital, interviewing, and also the incident location to where the violent crime took place.
So you do have to split up the resources to 2 different locations then?
That is correct. Yeah.
Chief, why is this happening right now? Is there something that's changed, or that your people have learned that if it's created a condition where people feel that they can just settle things the way they've been settling in the last few hours?
So I will say that these disputes, from what we know right now, or these incidents, aren't interrelated. That there seem to be isolated incidents that took place last night. To why violent crimes occur, I think you're exactly right. People do not take the time to talk things out, disputes quickly escalate, and people turn to violence, which is not the answer. And part of that response from our PD perspective is to remove guns off the street, make it not easily accessible for people to go to their waste or go to their vehicles and pull out these guns or feel comfortable walking around the streets with these guns on their side. So far this year, we've already removed over 800 guns off the city streets of Rochester. And we will continue to work hard to take even more off.
The response that you just described, though, that you're going to roll out, is it in direct response to what has happened in the last few days and weeks?
Of course it is. Of course it is. And I think that's important, that the community see that the RPD is going to be given a response, a adequate response, and a necessary response to violent crime. Now, beyond just the immediate, in the next week or two, we are looking at a long-term strategy, a strategy to continue to reduce the amount of crime in the city of Rochester so we can continue towards that downward trend that we have been experiencing for the past few years.
But are we talking about roadblocks immediately? Are we talking about things beyond normal routine?
Again, I won't get into the specifics of our plans, but you will see an increased RPD presence in the city of Rochester this weekend.
Can you
How is
talk
that different
about
from the
what
Give
happened?
initiative?
I mean, all we know is that 2 people were shot, they were taken to the hospital, and there were 2 incidences within several hours. Can you say more, like, was it a fight? Was it someone caught in the crosshairs of a between and they were innocent?
These are active investigations, so I can't go into the details about what led to them. But again, we don't believe that the people who were targeted were innocent bystanders, if you will. We think these were people who were engaged in disputes, which ultimately led to that violence.
This is on Wilkins or on Genesee and Holly?
Again, very early on in our investigations, so I don't want to get into the details, but on both locations.
Even just basic details of, like, were they walking, were they hanging out? Just
I wouldn't want to give any details that would jeopardize the investigation into ensuring that the people who perpetrated this violence are brought to justice, so I'm going to have to decline.
How does the plan that you guys discussed this morning differ from things like the Give initiative, where it's specifically targeting certain hotspots and keeping an eye on certain individuals and increasing patrols in areas? That would seem like both a short-term and long-term plan that you guys are involved in with the city and grant money. So how is what you're planning to do different than what you guys already have in place?
So I wouldn't say that it is different. It is not necessarily different, but in an increased presence. We are actually, part of our plans is to use the Give initiative, some of those funds to allow officers to come in overtime to do some of these saturation details. I think that when you're responding to crime, there aren't any strategy that's going to be a single strategy that's going to solve all crime in the city of Rochester. It takes a mixed use of strategies and different initiatives to combat crime, and we are committed to doing so.
What can you say about these areas specifically, though? Are those hotspots that you guys keep an eye out on?
So Wilkins Street and Hawley Street are part of our Give initiative enforcement areas. So these are locations that are chronic problem locations, and we will continue to monitor those locations moving forward in the future.
As a resident of the city of Rochester, what would look different to your eyes going into this weekend? I mean, how will this look different?
Increased police presence, increased engagement. We have our crime police officers going out and knocking on doors and engaging the community. I'm trying to follow up on witnesses and find out what they may have heard, and also to reassure them that RPD will be there, our presence will be known and felt throughout the weekend and in times to come.
So if these were already areas that you guys were keeping an eye on and having extra officers in that area, I mean, do you think that helped or would have prevented further violence? I mean, because it's 2 people dead, 3 others shot in areas that you guys already
I think, as I touched on before, our violent crime numbers speak for themselves. Our crime is going down, and that is not by coincidence. That is by the work and the efforts that are being done by the men and women who bravely put on this uniform every day to go out and get the work done. So, yes, RPD won't be able to stand on any one particular street 24/7, but our presence in these locations does curb crime, and will continue to do so.
Chief, you said these weren't bystanders. Did the people that you had in the neighborhoods, did folks like Pathways to Peace, did they have an understanding of who these people who were shot were? And were they part of the problem or something else?
Again, we're still very early on in our investigation. We are working with our community partners like Pathways to Peace to help us put together what happened last night and to assist us in our further in our investigation so we can apprehend the people responsible.
Do we know if any way that any of this violence was related to what happened at the stadium last Saturday?
Not that I'm aware of at this particular moment.
On that theme though, speaking of the stadium, I know that the city school district has come out saying that they're increasing their security for this Saturday's homecoming game at Marina Auto Stadium and East High. From the standpoint of police, what would that look like?
So the Rochester Police Department have met with city school district officials, and we're a big part of their planning sessions, making sure that there's proper security at the stadiums. Our school resource officers will be on hand, as well as the car beat officers who patrol those areas to make sure that there are adequate resources so we can prevent what occurred last weekend.
Chief, there's a lot of good people that live in these neighborhoods, families who right now are scared after all this. Your message to them is not only more patrols, like you said, but really is there something you can say about how you guys are not going to tolerate this, you're going to be on top of it? Can you just reiterate some of those points?
Yeah, I think I made it clear. I'm not going to sit here and pontificate on this issue. I made it clear. The RPD will not tolerate it, and we will do everything in our power to make sure that the individuals responsible for violent crimes in the city of Rochester are held accountable. All right. Thank you very much for coming this morning.